Well, hello there. So, I'm going to try to record more episodes of this little podcast here and there when I have some free time. And this time, I'm going to call this episode Rising Above False Accusations, Navigating Misunderstandings and Moving Forward. So, I think most of us have probably been falsely accused of something at some point in our lives, and it can be something relatively mild, and maybe we can quickly move past it. In some cases, it might be something extreme, and it can be damaging, perhaps even altering our life's course and things like that. But whatever the case may be, I've accumulated some professional advice here in my notes, and I want to share a little anecdote about when I was falsely accused of something that was truly ridiculous. And it was probably intended just as a joke, but it felt pretty damaging. See, when I was in high school, they were dissecting cats in a science class, and I had actually failed, the test when it came to like labeling the different parts of cat anatomy and stuff like that. I just wasn't that great at science class. So the other kids, well, not all of them, but some of them, kind of spread a vicious rumor that I intentionally had flunked that class just so I could dissect the cats again, or whatever, something like that. Now, part of me wants to just say, oh, they were just kidding and laugh it off, but at the same time, it was a little bit damaging, and it's not just the fact that, they were basically trying to suggest I was like a Jeffrey Dahmer type or something like that. But it was also simply the fact that it wasn't true. You know, I'm I'm a person who can be bothered by that sometimes. I mean, again, I'm sure they were joking. I don't think they even had the most vicious attitude about it, but it did bother me a little bit. And sometimes I think about that all these years later, that they were, kind of spreading that little rumor about me. So that's kind of partly what inspired me to proceed with this episode here. So, it can be disheartening when people, assume the worst of you and they accuse you of things that simply aren't true. And you might be wondering, well, how do I move forward? And all that kind of stuff. Well, it's indeed tough when people misunderstand or misjudge you or just lie about you, especially when their assumptions are unfounded. So here are some steps you can take to move forward. In some cases, maybe you're just looking back at the past and you're still hanging on to some resentment about something that happened. And if that's the case, you might want to ask, well, is it really being helpful to obsess over this? It might be a would've, could've, should've scenario, like if you think, oh, maybe I'd be rich right now if I went to a better college or something like that. It could just be something like that. Maybe you should just try a little bit harder to look past it, right? And maybe it might be simpler to do that than you would think at first. So the first step, though, is to stay calm and rational. It's natural to feel upset or frustrated when falsely accused, but try to remain calm and composed. Reacting emotionally can escalate the situation even further. And, you'll perhaps want to communicate, if possible, calmly communicate with the individuals who have accused you. Express your perspective and clarify any misunderstandings. There's a motivational speaker and an author named Glenn Blanchard who once said that feedback is the breakfast of champions. So, get their feedback and give them your feedback. Maybe you can do so effectively, and whatever ill feelings there are between you can be sort of gotten rid of or whatever. Maybe, There have been situations where, someone might start off with somebody as almost an enemy, but then, you move past a misunderstanding, and maybe you can be like best buds or something like that. And I'm surprised I use the word best buds because I don't really like the word bud that much, but there it is. I used it. So open, honest communication can often clear up misconceptions, and it's like it's one of those tough first steps, because not everyone wants to have such a conversation. It's like a workplace saying, "Oh well, if we talk to our employees, they're only going to complain. It'll only make things worse or something like that." But you have to seek understanding, or you should seek understanding. Try to understand why people might have assumed the worst of you. There's a saying that goes like, before you assume, learn; before you judge, understand; before you hurt, feel; and before you say, think. Is there anything in your behavior or actions that could have been misinterpreted? Or dare I say it, maybe they actually weren't wrong. Maybe they were telling the truth, and maybe you just didn't see it. You can have this conversation and you can potentially arrive at the greater truth. It's sort of like if you look at the opposite scenario where people are maybe building you up to be better than you are. In some ways, that can almost be more damaging in some scenarios than people who are trash talking you, because, if you're constantly being told by people, "Oh, you're naturally gifted, you're totally unflawed," or something like that, well, it can create an unrealistically high standard for yourself. So if you fail, you can crash pretty hard, like if that happens. And, it's like the opposite scenario, but I just want to show that, there are different problems that people can have that might be able to be resolved by communication. Like if there's too much pressure on somebody, like to do well in school or something like that, they can even become suicidally depressed because they might not be able to meet those expectations, or maybe it's just too stressful to like get perfect grades or whatever. You do hear about those issues when it comes to, intelligent people in school or gifted people or whatever. So the point is that understanding the root cause can help prevent similar situations in the future. Sorry, I got kind of a sore throat here. Sounding a little bit like Harold Ramis or Kermit the Frog. So you can focus on your actions as well. That's another good idea. Well, you can't control how others perceive you, or you can only minimally control that, but you can control your own actions and behavior, which can indeed shape the way they perceive you as well. And there's a lot to be said about just behaving in a relatively decent way. So continue to act with integrity and demonstrate your true character through your deeds. Some of this is the basic stuff, like be sure to say thank you, sometimes. I know it's not always something that we remember to do, just like I've sometimes forgotten to leave a tip in a restaurant. You're not always necessarily going to be the most polite person in the room, but there's something to be said about doing that. And another good idea is to support yourself with supportive people. Surround yourself with people who you consider your loved ones, like family or colleagues or anyone like that. People who know and understand you well. And I kind of hate to say to just avoid negative Nellies, especially when sometimes you might be one of them, as I can be sometimes. But it's really something that comes down to trying to be around people who bring out the best in you rather than who bring out the worst. I might as well put it like that. Their support can help you maintain perspective and weather negativity from others. And, practice self-compassion. Be kind to yourself during challenging times. No, I don't want to go so drastic and say that we were all born to be good or whatever. But, we weren't all born to be evil either. There's something to be said about seeing people as mostly in the middle somewhere. I know that can be tough if you look at a news story and you see people being rotten and stuff like that. But, most people are at least relatively good most of the time. And going back to the main point here, remind yourself that false accusations don't define your worth or your character. Learn and grow. Use the experience as an opportunity for personal growth. Reflect on what you've learned about yourself and others through the situation, and consider how you can handle similar challenges more effectively in the future. Let go of resentment, if possible. Holding on to resentment towards those who have accused you will only weigh you down. It's sort of like what Buddha said. Holding on to anger is like grasping a hot coal with the intent of throwing it at someone else. You are the one who gets burned. And you know what? That is quite often true. Try to let go of negative emotions and focus on moving forward positively. And on that note, even though there's sort of a stigma against this type of help, you might want to seek professional help if needed. If the accusations have significantly impacted your mental well-being, consider seeking support from a therapist or a counselor. As the CDC has noted, mental health and mental illness are not the same. A person can experience poor mental health and not be diagnosed with a mental illness. So that's actually a fairly important point here. The professionals can provide guidance and tools to help you cope with the situation. Well, if they're adequate at their jobs, of course. I'm one of those people who has to add caveats to everything. Because I don't want to say that everything's going to go perfectly and that life will never go off the rails or anything like that. I want to be a realist here. At the same time, try to stay positive. Take the good with the bad. Despite whatever challenges you're facing, try to maintain a positive outlook. And I know that can be tricky, but it's usually going to lead to better results than the opposite. And of course, treat others how you want to be treated in the process. Remember that difficult times are often temporary, and in most cases you could probably have the resilience to overcome them. Sometimes you might not really need the help of others. You might just be able to develop a philosophy that helps you through the moments like that. And, it's not just about putting on a brave face, but sometimes about the plain truth. Most problems are ordinary and they will pass. That's often the way things go. Moving forward from false accusations can be challenging, but with patience, resilience, and support, you can, again, in most cases, navigate through this difficult period and emerge stronger on the other side. So with time, you'll likely come out of it better for having faced adversity head on. Don't forget that there is no shame in wanting to get better, even after being falsely accused. You deserve to feel good about yourself again. Well, again, I'm generalizing. I don't know you. I'm just speaking generally here. So lastly, if the false accusations are sustained and it's truly damaging your reputation, and it even amounts to serial harassment, you'll probably want to consider legal options, especially if you can afford a lawyer. If that's the case, you can contact an experienced attorney who specializes in such work if you want more information regarding those options. Now, I kind of consider that fruit from a poison tree, but, some of you can do that. You have the money to do it, and you probably will do it. That's the way it goes sometimes. And good luck with your situation, whatever your approach. Again, I think most of us have been falsely accused of things a time or two. And hopefully this episode was not a complete waste of time, and you can tolerate my sore throat as I'm talking here. Anyway, have a good day.